All right, I'm recording this again because my audio wasn't working. Shout out to Jay for being my personal IT guy. So, for those of you who don't know, there are two new Horus cards coming out in the next main set called Phantom Nightmare. And today I'm going to go ahead and review them. So, to be honest, before we go into this, I do want to preface this video by basically explaining, sometimes Konami makes some cards and we don't use them how Konami wanted us to use them. I am pretty sure Konami expected Horus to be like this control type deck where basically you just spam these big bodies and then control the board with their effects, because if they remove anything, then you're able to, garner resources or remove stuff as well with Himseti. And then if they can't remove the King Sark, it comes back. So the only natural progression was obviously for there to be another card that would replace the name of King Sark. And I believe that is kind of what they expected, not really just rank 8 toolbox to use Zombie Vampire or Photon Ward. But I do think that type of strategy is viable. I think I've seen people play Horus control decks with like floodgates and not. Of course, the best floodgate for that deck did just get put to 1, but I still think the deck is potentially viable. To be honest, both of the new cards honestly foster more that kind of playstyle, a more control-based deck, as opposed to the actual rank 8 spam versions that we've been using with like PK Horus or Therion Horus or even the Red Resonator Dragonlink Horus. Like, I don't think the two new cards are really going to be seeing too much play in those kind of lists. However, it does give Horus control a good little boost in power. So first I'm going to go over the monster, because the field spell kind of garners onto the monster, and then I'll go over the field spell which is coming out. So the monster is called Horus Black Flame Deity, and it reads: if you control Horus monster and King Sarcophagus, you can reveal this card in your hand, send one card from your hand or field to the graveyard as the cost. Send one card from the field to the graveyard is the effect. If a face-up King Sarcophagus and or Horus monster other than Horus Black Flame Deity you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then you can send all other monsters on the field to the graveyard. You can only use each effect of Horus the Black Flame Deity once per turn. So, first thing I want to explain is that the revealing and sending a card from your hand to the graveyard is cost. That being said, you are able to send itself to the graveyard as part of the cost. However, you don't have to, which means you are able to continue holding this throughout the turns and continuously sending other cards instead to continue using the effect multiple times throughout multiple turns. That's great and all, but to be fair, it just doesn't seem to fit the playstyle. Like King Sark, you're really just trying to pitch all of your cards to just then spam everything. You're not really trying to keep cards in your hand. You're really just trying to like summon as many bodies and just, make as big as a board as possible and go. So, I mean, again, in a Horus control variant, I can see this being all right, as it does give you a protection way of interrupting, like a proactive way of interrupting your opponent instead of a reactive way, because all of your Horus monsters are reactive to when your opponent removes a card. And so this gives you a proactive way, so you can immediately send something if they attempt to like threaten you with something that would like board wipe or something like that. You're able to go ahead and proactively remove cards instead. The other effect to summon itself whenever something is removed is followed up by a optional ability to then remove all the monsters on the board. This does include your own monsters. However, it is interesting because basically, if you need this as a last resort to clear the board, make sure you survive the turn, and then next turn, pop off of your Horus monsters that are still in your graveyard, then that is an option that you do have. That being said, it doesn't really fit the in PK Horus. I don't see me playing this. I don't even see me playing this in like Dragonlink Horus, and I really doubt Therion Horus would be playing this either. Although maybe there's a possibility, but I just don't think it fits the playstyles, as they really want to basically make the biggest board possible and utilize the interruptions. The fact that this monster can't even summon itself like the way the other Horus monsters do makes it inherently worse, in my opinion. Again, it is a hand trap style effect, so it does fit a different playstyle completely, and the control variant of Horus might be able to utilize this card to garner different success, but I don't see the combo variants that are already being played with hybrid other engines doing as well with this card. Now, the second card is a field spell, and honestly, I'm mad. I'm upset at Konami because I honestly, yes, the Horus engine is crazy, right? Like, there's a lot of reasons why the Horus engine is really good, but I don't think it was so good that you had to nerf the field spell. And they really, really did nerf the field spell because they made it so that the field spell plays even heavier into the things that the engine already plays into. So, the field spell is called Stone Wall of Imperial Tombs, of the Imperial Tombs, and it reads, this card's name becomes King Sarcophagus while in the field zone, which is great because that gives you another way of having a King Sark. This was kind of like the natural progression of the archetype. You could always already tell that there was going to be another card that would count as King Sark. During your main phase, you can add one Horus monster from your deck to your hand, then place one card from your hand to the bottom of the deck. You can only use this effect of Stonewall Imperial Tombs once per turn. If you activate the effect of Horus, the Black Flame Deity, you can draw one card. So, this is a add-on to the other monster, again in a Horus control variant where you're pretty much, using your Horus monsters to continuously add cards back or draw cards through through Happy and Zumatev, and then remove cards with Mseti and this guy, plus drawing cards off Stonewall. You might be able to play a kind of nice grind control deck throughout that, but other variants where they really just use the Horus engine as like ladders to climb up into their stuff, I don't see them really utilizing the second effect, as I don't see them using the Horus deity card in many of their lists. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just don't see it happening. Overall, the fact that it's King Sark is great. The thing is, honestly, it would have been so much better if they would have simply made it that on activation, you add a Horus name, because then you wouldn't lose a card. It would still be just as decent as all the other field spell, and you would still play into Droll, and they could still Ash the Mseti, but at the very least, you wouldn't be going super, super neg. Let me explain what I mean by this. So, if you activate this card, you go from 5 cards to 4 cards. Then you go ahead and activate the effect, assuming it goes through, which you should. There's no reason why you should be acting this. You get to then get a 5th card, which is the Mseti, theoretically, obviously. This is better if you're adding this. I think this card is better if you're adding the Black Flame Deity, but I just don't think the Black Flame Deity is like all that good. Anyways, you're adding Mseti in other variants. You're going from 5 to 4 to 5 to 4 again. And the thing is, you're putting back a card to the bottom of the deck, and now you have 4 cards in hand. If you get drolled here, that means the Mseti in your hand is essentially useless, so you really are playing the turn with 3 cards in hand. And so that one hand trap droll eliminated 2 of the cards in your hand, and also made it to that whatever secondary engine you're playing is not going to be able to add cards as well, which for most secondary engines is very important. And normally we're okay with this because it's like, okay, sure, I can't add any more cards, but I can still King Sark, and then I can get into, this is off of like being drolled after Mseti. You can still King Sark, you can still go into Zombie Vampire, you can, still do plays. But in this scenario, you can't, because you don't have King Sark, you have Mseti in hand, and so you're just there looking dumb. So yeah, droll becomes super impactful against this variant now if you play that card, and Ash is even more insane, because if you think about it, not even more, but still really, really insane. Because if you think about it, once again, you go to 4 cards, then you go Mseti, go to 2 cards, and you get Ash there. You only have 2 playable cards in your hand. And even if you're playing a deck where like PK, where the card you pitched probably helps you, like Water Intentions or whatever, it's still like card count wise, it made the Ash insane, because the Ash brought you down from 3 cards in hand, from 5 cards in hand to 2 cards in hand. So essentially, the Ash traded 3 for 1. It's ridiculous. Yeah, like I don't see this card being that great just because of how much more it plays into hand traps. Like, of course, if you're running, like if the format ends up changing because of Fire Kings or whatever, and people aren't running these hand drops, maybe it's a lot better. But I don't even think that's how the format's going to progress. So playing into these hand traps that heavily is just not a good thing. Furthermore, the benefit you have is at least you can summon the Mseti because it's considered a King Sark, but I don't see that being too big of a factor. But what's funny is there is a situation where like The field spell makes you kind of have to do these really negative big brain plays where, like, for example, you start off field spell, go to 4 cards, search Unsteady. Let's say you opened one of the bricks like Happy or Dematef, right? You would want to put back the brick because it's like, okay, cool, I'll just send the brick later. And I'm putting back a brick, so I'm making my hand, less clogged, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But putting back a brick here is actually bad because then if you get ashed, at least if you, didn't put back the brick and you discarded the brick, now you have 2 free summons. But that means that instead of putting back a brick, you put back a playable card. So, like, it might be the big brain play to actually put back a playable card and send and keep the brick to then play around the ash in that manner. But that's not the most relieving quality. I'm not saying the card is unplayable. Honestly, I'm going to actually be testing it in PK Horus, specifically also because of what I just said. Because at the very least, even if Unsteady gets ashed at that point, and if you did pitch a brick, it does allow you to then bring back 2, which makes the bricks less bricks per se, but it does encourage some negativity. Of course, luckily with the Unsteady, with the PK build specifically, there are a lot of bricks such as Draco Pack, so it's not horrible, but I don't know. I'll test it at 1 or 2 at first and see if I like it, but generally speaking, I really don't think so because I don't want to play into Droll so heavily, and I really don't want to play into Ash that heavily either, and I just feel like this card makes it so you play into it very, very heavily. Overall, honestly, I'd give the Field Spell a 4 out of 10, and I'd give the Black Flame Deity a 5 out of 10. The reason why I'd give the Black Flame Deity a 5 out of 10 is because at the very least, the Black Flame Deity fits into the control aspect of that variant of Horus, and actually, I think is a good card in that variant. But the Field Spell, no matter what variant you're playing, is still going to further play into the hand traps and basically exploit your weaknesses much, much more. I'm not saying that the Field Spell isn't going to be played or that it's going to be completely bad. I just personally don't like it at all. Again, we still got to do some testing with it, see what happens. Hopefully, it works. But me personally, I don't see it. But you guys tell me what you think of these cards in the comments, and I'll see if we can start up a conversation.